It's beautiful, she says, peering through the jeweler's loop. Is it finished? I rub my tired eyes. Yes, ma'am, this is as detailed a piece as I can create. She regards me calmly for a moment, unfurls a bundle of crisp notes and from her metallic clutch and pushes them onto the workbench. Try. It's taken me 3 months to sculpt this tiny piece. For over half the time, I've been working at a scale too small for the naked eye, using the finest of scalpels. I'm proud of what I've done, even if I doubt anyone will ever truly appreciate it. And what she's just paid, in cash, is more than I was promised, more than I've ever earned for a job. But, finer, she smiles. The original request was for an 11-foot model, or 1 in 50 replica of the building it would sit in, commissioned by Elise Lavando, the black-clad widow of the architect. Some say he died under suspicious circumstances. Some say she's a witch. I don't listen to such nonsense. When the first sculpture was complete and Mrs. Lavando came by to inspect it, she pointed to the enclosed perspex foyer spreading from the base of the stark modernist building, like fungi from a decaying tree trunk. Is that where we are now, Mr. Nolan? Yes, ma'am. Please, call me Bill. She frowned. I don't see it. Ma'am? An 11-foot sculpture ought to show it, shouldn't it? I almost laughed. I definitely smiled. I took an offcut and a simple translucent rectangle and eased it into place. Better, she said, head tilted to one side, the curve of her alabaster neck glowing beneath the halogen lights, the warmth reawakening the perfume she wore. But it needs to be more detailed. More detailed? Much more. I want it as wonderfully detailed as what you've already created. Can you do that for me, Bill? She was a striking woman. Black, I think, suited her. It contrasted with the pale skin, made those green eyes brighter still. I felt her blush betray me. Looking away, I gulped and nodded. I'm not a microsculptor, not before this job anyhow. There are people out there who dedicate their lives to this sort of thing. A row of camels marching along the eye of a needle. It's been done. Angels dancing on the head of a pin. How many do you want? This is different, more elaborate, more precise. A miniature recreation of a newly erected office block sitting in an architectural model of that building, sitting in the lobby of the building. But that's not enough for Elise, for Mrs. Lavando. I know what she's really asking for. I do the maths. My miniature model isn't complete unless it also has a model sitting in its foyer. And that will be... Christ, 1.5 millimeters high. Surely that's impossible, and why would anyone pay good money for such a thing? I'm used to architectural models being commissioned in advance of the build as a way of selling the project and getting it past the planners. But this tower was already complete, already occupied by the rich and oh so discreetly famous, from the health spa and the austere concrete basement, via the wide windowed apartments priced far beyond the lint-filled pockets of a humble artist, right up until the unattainable heights of the top floor, protected by a key code from anyone not in our exclusive circle. I buy a microscope. This is how the microsculptors work. At 400 res, my paintbrush is a single hair, my knife a sharpened needle blade. I work between breaths, work by letting my pulse gently nudge the delicate tool in my hand. It's back-breaking stuff, the tension of holding still as much a strain as hefting bricks on mixing cement. And it isn't enough. Finer is all she says. Depositing an even thicker wad of cash on my desk, I almost say no, go to hell. But instead, I stand silent as she takes the elevator to her penthouse suite, to the unseen splendors of her private apartments up on the 66th floor, to her lonely, widowed existence. Spellbroken, I stride away, not even bothering to lock up my tools, heading for the nearest bar. I guess I'm in my cups when I make the call, the dialing code directing my slurred words halfway around the world to the guy who put camels in the eye of a needle. What he tells me fills me with relief, though. He promises there's a way to work at ever smaller scales, even smaller than he usually works at. And this from the man who carved a single grain of sand into a pedestal for a microscopic Statue of Liberty. It demands some sacrifices, he says, but it can be done. I celebrate by drinking myself into oblivion. When I wake, head pounding, I'm back in the lobby of the Lavando building. There's something wrong with my eyes, or with what I'm seeing. The sun is too wide and not warming enough. There's a closeness to the air, and the familiar building above me is far too familiar. Not built of concrete, steel and glass, but from perspex and modelling glue. Not built by the deceased architect, but by me. How did I not see that straight away? Perhaps because I'm not used to my model topping out 160 metres above me. Only it isn't, is it? It can't possibly be any more than I, a fully grown man, could fit beneath the handspan of my model canopy. That's just as impossible, isn't it? Something moves, high up. An emerald eye, impossibly large, swimming in a clear liquid sea. A woman's eye, already giant, grotesquely magnified behind a loop the size of a jet engine. Beautiful, whispers a husky feminine voice, the air shifting around me in time to the movement of her mountainous scarlet lips. Now, make it finer.